Minimalists.
What are my recycling options if I live in a city without a robust recycling program? And some examples here: Las Vegas, where Carlos lives, Missoula, where I used to live, Missoula, Montana. They had a terrible recycling program. In fact, I wondered if they were just throwing it away and calling it recycling. They didn't recycle glass. They hardly recycled anything. And so it was just difficult. I guess because Missoula is so remote, the cost of recycling there, it didn't make sense financially for a for-profit business. And I'm interested to hear what you have to say on this because, another place I lived, Phillipsburg, Montana, which is truly in the middle of nowhere. You basically had to take your own trash to the trash dump. There was no recycling center anywhere within 100 miles of where I was. Now that is a remote place. Well, let's take that off the table. But for smaller places, or even places like Las Vegas that don't have a robust recycling program, what do you recommend to people?
Well, first of all, why doesn't Las Vegas have a robust recycling program is my question.
Yes.
That's what I'd like to know. And I think that's where my mind goes, is like, go to your city council meeting, start talking, speak up. That should change right away. Las Vegas is not a small town in Montana like you just described, so there's really no reason for that, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But that's just the way that I think immediately, is that change needs to happen and the ball needs to start rolling right there.
Yeah.
First and foremost. Secondly, if we're talking about plastics, unfortunately, to me, plastic recycling is like a big old farce. It's not even happening.
Oh, wow.
We're at 9% right now. In some states, really 3%. So many times...
Can I just stop you there? When you say we're at 9%, is that 9% of the, say, we take 100 plastic bottles and put them in the recycling, only 9 of them are being recycled?
Yes, correct.
Why is that?
Just because there's, like you said, there's so much. First of all, there's 1 million plastic bottles being thrown away per minute in America alone. So that is massive, massive quantity, A. And B, it's not like cans and glassware that actually, when you recycle it, it comes out just as good as new. It degrades so much that it's just not worth it. So many times people feel this like sense of kind of like comfort. I'm going to drink this drink in my plastic water bottle. I'll put it in the recycling bin and it'll get recycled. But it's not. It's actually not. So we really don't believe in recycling plastic at Habits of Waste. We believe in refusing plastic altogether.
Yes.
We just don't think that it's even worth attempting to recycle plastic. So it's not going to, you're not going to make change unless you just refuse it.
Yeah.
And that's not even talking about the clamshells and cutlery and all that stuff. That's definitely not going to get recycled.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So with the straws in particular, that was the thing that was near and dear to your heart. Obviously, it's a piece of plastic. You're not anti-straw, you're anti-plastic straw. You can have metal straws, and you're totally fine with that, I assume. But there are options for us. We're allowed to say no to some of these things. And I think, again, this is something we don't think about up front. We're able to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to say no to it. And by the way, if the business that you're buying from refuses you, then you can refuse to do business with them. We get to vote with our wallets.
That's right. And I really think the mindset shift is right there. It's like, instead of thinking of so much about recycling, how can we stop it from the beginning? How can we just, turn off the tap and not even have this problem is my goal, really.
Yeah. Well, that dovetails perfectly into my pithy answer here. The most sustainable purchase is the one that's left on the shelf. I think quite often we don't think about that. It's like, well, do I get this plastic thing or this plastic thing? And which one's better for the environment?
Neither.
Well, yeah, right, exactly. And what can I do? Now, of course, there are things now. You may have plastic in your home, and it's unfortunate. You have a bunch of plastic maybe you want to get rid of. And it's one of the reasons that I really dislike places like the Container Store, for example, because it does two things really wrong, I think. One is I think organizing is just well-planned hoarding. So it doesn't actually deal with the problem of consumerism and overindulgent consumption. But second, it creates all this additional waste, plastic waste, as well. And so it's this. I get it. I understand the need to want to be organized, but that's probably not the best route to take. The best way to organize your stuff is to to let go of most of it. And the best way to let go is, of course, not to bring it in the first place.
You see these beautiful pantries on Instagram of like different snacks and this and that, and it's literally a glorification of plastic. All that packaging, all those plastic bins. Like, let's rewind and just get back to like the core problem. Why are we buying all those prepackaged individual snacks to put in a plastic container B? Let's start from the beginning. Can we do things differently altogether?
And so how do we do things differently? What are some of the alternatives when, instead of saying, well, of course, it's going to be really difficult to get to zero plastic. You're not advocating an all or nothing strategy. It's about a radical reduction in the amount of plastic we let in. But how do we do that? What are the alternatives?
Buy in bulk, number one. Rather than buying individual packaged bags of chips for your kids' lunches, maybe I understand we're all human beings. We love those goodies. Get one big one and then use reusable containers to divvy it up. You get so much less waste that way. That's just one example. Another one is it's really fun to try and make recipes like your own granola, your own bars, your own fruit leathers. There's a lot of opportunities right now, especially since many people are still at home, to create recipes that are just fun to do with your kids, and you just create them with so much less waste.
Yeah. I'm thinking about our home, and we have some glass containers, reusable. I think the key to the reusables is actually reusing them, because sometimes good intentions are, I'm going to buy these reusable things, but it's actually worse for the environment if you buy something and then you just don't reuse it. You end up throwing it away or discarding it relatively quickly. Can you talk about that? We
have some jars, like you said. I buy like pickle jars or some different pickles or whatever it is, like a glass jar. And those are my to-go containers. So I leave them in my car if I'm going to a restaurant, and I'll take them in and I'll refill them with the food that I would have otherwise asked for a to-go box. And it's going to be either polystyrene or plastic or even aluminum with a plastic lid. Or if I have leftovers at home and I want to pass it out to like friends and family, I fill those up and I pass it out like that. And they can continue living just, constantly. I might make green juice at home and fill those jars up with the juice. So it is so beautiful to go and buy these amazing bottles and this and that. You don't really need to. My water bottle is a tomato sauce jar, actually, and it's a beautiful bottle. It's a company called Muti, and I tagged them and I was like, these can be really great water bottles afterwards. So they started reposting, and who said a water bottle needs to be branded to you as a water bottle?
Yeah, by the way, just thinking about that term branding, it's I think of branding as a pejorative. I don't want to wear a bunch of logos on my clothes. It's free I paid someone for the privilege of advertising on my body. Or aren't we doing the same thing with these fancy sports bottles or whatever? And in a weird way, we're trying to indicate something about ourselves, who we are as a person through this brand. But of course, we can never accomplish that. I think the last thing I want to touch on with Carlos's question here is, I think it may even seem overly simplistic to say, but the less we consume, the less waste we produce. And I want to think about that, because as a minimalist, environmentalism was not the primary objective for me when we first started simplifying. But it was this beautiful byproduct of consuming less stuff. There was less packaging, less waste, less things to donate or throw away or try to sell. It was maybe the best unintended benefit of living with less.